Staff Sergeant Maria Santos approached the downed aircraft expecting to find an injured pilot requiring immediate medical evacuation. But the crash scene was too clean, the pilot's injuries too minor, and when she spotted enemy equipment hidden in the wreckage, Rescue Eagle Protocol transformed a routine rescue mission into a fight for survival against enemies who had turned a pilot into unwilling bait. The HH-60G Pave Hawk helicopter had been airborne for 43 minutes when the emergency beacon activated, transmitting the distinctive signal that meant an American aviator was down behind enemy lines and requiring immediate rescue. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos served as the mission's pararescue specialist, trained in advanced combat medicine, tactical operations, and the specialized skills necessary to recover isolated personnel from hostile territory. At 26, Maria had completed over 50 combat search and rescue missions during 2 deployments to Afghanistan, earning recognition as one of the Air Force's most capable CSAR operators. Her job combined the medical expertise of a trauma surgeon with the tactical skills of a special operations soldier, making her qualified to treat severely wounded personnel while fighting off enemy forces attempting to capture or kill American rescue crews. CSAR operations were among the most dangerous missions in military aviation. Recovery teams had to fly deep into enemy territory, land in potentially hostile areas, and extract personnel while under fire from enemy forces who understood that rescue helicopters made valuable targets. Maria's rescue team consisted of highly trained specialists. Major Sarah Chun as pilot, Captain David Rodriguez as co-pilot, Technical Sergeant Mike Johnson as flight engineer and door gunner, and herself as the pararescue jumper responsible for locating, treating, and extracting the downed pilot. The crew had worked together for 8 months, developing the coordination and trust necessary for high-risk rescue operations. The flight to the crash site had proceeded without incident. Afghan airspace was contested territory, but intelligence reports indicated minimal enemy air defense capability in the target area, and coalition fighter aircraft were providing overwatch to protect the rescue helicopter during its vulnerable approach and landing phases. Maria studied the crash site through the helicopter's thermal imaging system as they circled at a safe distance. The F-16 wreckage was clearly visible, scattered across a rocky hillside where the aircraft had impacted after the pilot's ejection. Thermal signatures indicated one person near the crash site, consistent with a single pilot awaiting rescue. Major Chun selected a landing zone approximately 200 meters from the crash site, far enough to avoid enemy forces that might be concealed near the wreckage, but close enough for Maria to reach the pilot quickly on foot. The approach would require precision flying in mountainous terrain while maintaining awareness of potential threats from multiple directions. Rescue 1 is beginning approach to landing zone Alpha, Major Chin announced as the helicopter descended toward the rocky terrain. The helicopter touched down in a cloud of dust and debris, rotor wash creating a miniature sandstorm that provided concealment but also limited visibility. Maria exited the aircraft and moved toward the crash site using tactical movement techniques designed to minimize her exposure to enemy observation and fire. As she approached the F-16 wreckage, Maria's training allowed her to assess the crash scene with the analytical eye that had saved lives during dozens of previous rescue missions. Something about the scenario didn't match her expectations based on the pilot's radio reports and the visible damage to the aircraft. The first inconsistency was the condition of the wreckage itself. F-16 crashes typically resulted in scattered debris fields with extensive fire damage and impact destruction. But this aircraft appeared to have landed relatively intact, with damage patterns that suggested a controlled crash rather than a combat shoot-down followed by emergency ejection. The second warning sign was the pilot's condition and positioning. Captain Morrison was seated against a rock formation approximately 50 meters from his aircraft, conscious and alert, with injuries that appeared minor compared to what would be expected from a high-speed ejection and parachute landing in mountainous terrain. "Captain Morrison," Maria called as she approached his position. "I'm Staff Sergeant Santos, pararescue. How are you feeling, sir?" "I'm okay, Sergeant. Just some bruises and a possible sprained ankle. Nothing that should prevent extraction," Morrison replied, but something in his voice carried a tension that the equipment was definitely not American aircraft components. The angular shapes and color patterns suggested enemy communications gear, possibly surveillance equipment that had been positioned to monitor the crash site and coordinate with forces attempting to capture American rescue personnel. "Captain, I need you to move to a different position for extraction," Maria said carefully, using a tone that would sound routine to any listening devices while signaling potential danger. "Can you walk to the helicopter? Or do you need assistance?" Morrison's response confirmed her suspicions. "I think it would be better if the helicopter comes closer. I'm not sure I can make it that far with my ankle." No injured pilot would request a rescue helicopter to expose itself to additional danger by landing closer to a crash site unless external factors were influencing his decision. Maria's training had taught her to recognize when rescued personnel were under duress or coercion, and Morrison's behavior suggested he was not making independent decisions about his rescue. Maria activated her emergency radio frequency using subtle hand movements that would appear to be routine equipment adjustments. "Rescue 1, this is pararescue. Initiate Rescue Eagle Protocol." Repeat, Rescue Eagle Protocol is active. Rescue Eagle Protocol was the emergency code for situations where CSAR operations encountered enemy forces attempting to use downed airmen as bait to capture or destroy American rescue assets. The protocol required immediate extraction of the pararescue specialist and aboard of the rescue mission. The enemy response to Maria's protocol activation was immediate and coordinated. Concealed positions around the crash site erupted with small arms fire directed at both her position and the helicopter landing zone. The ambush had been carefully planned, with enemy forces positioned to create crossfire that would trap rescue personnel while preventing the helicopter from extracting them safely. "Captain, we need to move now," Maria shouted to Morrison while returning fire toward the enemy positions she could identify. "The helicopter can't extract us from here." Morrison's response revealed the truth about his situation. "I can't move. They'll kill me if I try to leave." The pilot wasn't injured and unable to move. He was being held by enemy forces who had positioned him as bait to lure American rescue forces into a kill zone. The entire rescue scenario had been orchestrated to capture valuable prisoners while destroying a rescue helicopter and its crew. Maria used her combat training to establish a defensive position while coordinating with her helicopter crew to develop an extraction plan under fire. The enemy forces were well-positioned and disciplined, suggesting professional military training rather than typical insurgent tactics. "Rescue 1, I need suppressive fire on the positions north and east of the crash site," Maria transmitted while treating minor wounds she had sustained from enemy rifle fire. "The pilot is being held against his will. We have a hostage situation, not a standard rescue." The Pave Hawk's door guns opened fire on the enemy positions, creating enough suppression to allow using smoke grenades to conceal her movement and carefully aimed suppressive fire to keep enemy heads down. Maria reached Morrison's position and confirmed that he was being held by two enemy combatants who had threatened to kill him if he attempted to signal his rescue team about the ambush. "Stay down and follow my lead," Maria instructed Morrison as she engaged the enemy guards with precise marksmanship that eliminated the immediate threat to the pilot's life. The firefight that followed tested every skill Maria had developed during her CSAR training. She had to protect an unarmed pilot while engaging multiple enemy positions, coordinate with her helicopter crew for extraction under fire, and navigate terrain that favored the enemy forces who had prepared the ambush. When Major Chan finally maneuvered the helicopter into position for extraction, Maria and Morrison reached the aircraft under covering fire from Technical Sergeant Johnson's door gun. The rescue that had begun as a routine pilot recovery had become a combat operation that saved both the original pilot and prevented the capture of a complete rescue crew. Rescue Operations Center, this is Rescue 1, Major Chin reported as they climbed away from the ambush site. Rescue Eagle Protocol executed successfully. Pilot recovered. No friendly casualties. Enemy forces used captured airmen as bait for coordinated ambush. As the Pave Hawk flew back to base with Captain Morrison safely aboard, Maria reflected on how quickly a standard rescue mission had become a life-or-death fight against enemies who had turned American commitment to recovering downed personnel into a tactical weakness to be exploited. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had approached what she expected to be a routine pilot rescue. Instead, she had recognized and defeated an enemy trap designed to capture American rescue personnel, proving that CSAR operators needed combat skills equal to their medical training when operating in hostile territory where the enemy understood that Americans would always come for their people. Rescue Eagle protocol had been successfully executed, ensuring that the principle of leave no one behind remained a strength rather than a vulnerability that enemies could exploit against American forces.